my definition of lean into it is it's two things. It's one, it's either go with the flow of the thing that you're trying to avoid, or make a gentle commitment to testing. So I can imagine how hard it would be for somebody who has a very, very, very negative view of sales to just say, okay, I'm going to go all in on learning sales.
Like, there's two different types of this. I think one of them's owning who you fucking are and the authenticity, and the other one is like owning who you're not, but you still have to work on it. Like organization, you have to own that you're not naturally organized and then work on it to achieve your goals. I have to just own the fact that I'm hyper organized and that's how I'm wired, and that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing, even though it's caused me massive pain from relationships that weren't aligned.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Today, for episode number 1952, what does it mean to lean into it? Now, if you played baseball, softball when you were younger, I'm not talking about when somebody throws an inside pitch and you throw that knee out a little bit, just take it off the edge, free base. I'm not talking about that. Alan and I were talking before this, and we were talking about the fear of success and the fear of failure and all that stuff. And Al had said something. He said, well, that's me leaning into it. And I said, have we ever done an episode on that concept? Maybe it's going to be the least valuable episode of all time. I don't know. But I feel like you say that all the time. Like, I got to lean into it. We got to lean into that a little more, lean into that. I thought it would make for a powerful episode. So my question to you, to start, what does it mean to lean into it? What does that mean to you?
We've done episodes in the past where we discuss, people say there's resistance. I don't want to do it if there's resistance. This episode is about the opposite of that, which is there is resistance. I'm owning that there's resistance, and I'm going to lean into it. And so the story that I have for this one, I was talking to Kev off air. There was a group coaching session with group 17, all podcasters. And the first session for me is always the awkward one because no one knows each other yet. And meeting strangers is scary for me because I'm unique. Unique New York. No, I'm unique. And I was wearing a red shirt. I don't know if it was this one. I don't think it was this one. Maybe it was this one. I think it was probably this one. And I said, I'm going to try. My only goal on today's group coaching session is to try to get as red as this shirt. I think people laughed. That was me leaning into it. That was me realizing, okay, these are new people. I'm intense. I'm going to try to unlock everyone's potential, and I'm probably going to come in hot and rah, and everyone's going to be super insecure. And again, this is all irrational fear. None of that's actually true. That was just all my irrational fears. Although some of it's true. I'm sure that's somewhat true. Then when I leaned into, I'm going to try to get as red as this shirt, that was basically a couple things happening. Number one, I'm owning the fact that this is uncomfortable. Not just for me, but for everyone. Imagine a group, me, Amy, Kev, and 12 strangers that don't know each other yet. And usually we do introductions in the WhatsApp group first, where people kind of get to know each other ahead of time. This time there was sort of 2 people that came in last minute, and we didn't have time to do the intros because they weren't in the WhatsApp grouhave. Usually we wait for everybody to be in there before we do the intros, all that stuff. So not only had no one known each other yet, but we didn't have them introduce each other yet. So everyone's a little bit uncertain. What's this program going to be? Who are these other people? Do I fit in? Do I not? What's this? A lot of uncertainty. So number one, I say I'm going to get as red as this shirt. It says, number one, he's playful enough to make fun of himself. He's admitting the fact that he's uncomfortable. He's red as shit, and we can all see that. And these bright-ass lights in my studio are not great.
They don't help.
In my opinion. Yeah, they don't help. And if he's able to be vulnerable and insecure, that makes me feel more secure. And even though the reason for that insecurity is different, it doesn't change the fact that I'm just going to own the fact that I'm uncomfortable. And I think that that's what leaning into it is. Whereas what a lot of people, we've looked at YouTube videos and different things in the past, and one of them was self-discipline doesn't work and all this stuff. And at NLU, we're kind of mythbusters. We don't agree. We think self-discipline is critical. We think resistance and leaning into resistance is critical. One of the reasons why everyone watching or listening hasn't achieved all of their goals and dreams yet is because there's something outside your comfort zone that you're not willing to do yet. I have an audio message that I'm going to be sending to a client that I'm uncomfortable to send, but I'm also excited because there's a big opportunity. I'm acknowledging that I'm fearful before I send it, and then there's a part of me that wants to avoid it, and I'm just going to lean in and do it, and it's on my MIT list. And I'm making sure in my head, I said this to myself, before this day ends, before 7:30, I close the store, metaphorically. I'm sending that fucking audio.
You got to Z out the register. Don't forget to Z out the register. That's a rookie move.
I'll make sure I do. Whatever that means.
You know what it means.
But lean in is, okay, I am insecure about other people thinking I'm too much. One last example. For anyone watching or listening who listened to yesterday's episode, I said something along the lines of, maybe that's why people don't like me. And then Kevin said, I don't know if I'm supposed to agree or disagree in these moments. And he said, I think one of the reasons is you don't like small talk, blah, blah, blah. Later on, after that episode was recorded, I was thinking about, is it an empowering belief or a limiting belief that I think people don't like me? And I thought about it, and this came up. I think it's empowering because I'm leaning into it, which will make me less scared of it. If I just own it, like I'm not an easily likable person, I feel like my life got way better when I started owning the fact that I'm not an easily likable person. And people always say, not always, but certain people are like, oh, no, you're likable. It's like, listen, I own it. It's okay. You might like me, but generally speaking, that is a fact. I've lived as me for 36 years. There's something inside of me that triggers people. I know what it is. It's tenacity. I had a very challenging childhood. I'm extremely dialed in. I'm very, very fucking intense, and I'm dialing it down most of the time, and you can feel it. It's like I can't even take it all out right now on the podcast because I will scare all the listeners away, but it's there. It's always there. 24/7, 365. It's always fucking there. It never goes out. It's something that's very intimidating. So I have to learn when to dial it up, when to dial it down, play with it, but owning it, leaning in. Okay, I'm not an easily likable person. Okay. I'm going to accept that. And ironically, paradoxically, I think I'll be more likable. Cool. And so it's known as paradoxical intention. If you say, I'm anxious and I want to try not to be anxious, it makes you more anxious. In the psychology, if you say, you know what, I'm going to be as anxious as I possibly can. I'm not guaranteeing this because I don't deal with anxiety. But what paradoxical intention is it actually makes you less anxious when you just own your anxiety. You just own it. Just accept it. Own it. Lean into it. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And you're right, we've never talked about it before, probably because I sucked at it.
I think one of the hardest things about anxiety is if you get, and again, this has been my experience, but if you get anxious around people, you don't want to tell people. But when you tell people, it makes it so much easier. Because I think a piece of anxiety, and we'll get back to the point, I promise, is you don't want people to know that you're anxious and you want to hide it, but when you let people know, it makes you feel safer.
I just had a moment.
What do you got?
I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, so Kev
I will correct you.
said to me, you don't have anxiety. Okay. True or false, the time when I hit the bong, was that anxiety?
That's anxiety, yes.
Oh, it was the worst.
The worst.
It was like, Kev, how long is this going to last?
Can I tell the story? Oh, my goodness. A bong story about Alan Lazaros on Next Level University.
Dude, I can't tell you. I have never not regretted it.
Marijuana?
Yeah, probably. I don't think there's ever a time where I've used marijuana where I didn't regret it.
Most people don't use the right amount. I was talking to somebody in the community. I will keep this anonymous. And they were talking about how they said something along the lines of like, I'll wake up and I'll take a 100 milligram edible. And
100?
100 milligram edible.
No.
And I was like, no way. I get a bag of 20 gummies that are 5 milligrams each, and I break them in half. I take 2.5 milligrams. And that's good. It's good for me. It's good. It's usually very relaxing, but if you go
100 migs?
100 mgs.
Dude.
And again, this person, shout out to you if you're listening, but very high tolerance.
Yeah.
Just a very, very high tolerance. Alan and I were spending time together back in the day. We were podcasting together at this point, but it wasn't a business.
7 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't a business. It wasn't serious.
In my late 20s.
And it was one of those times where we were kind of hanging out. It was very rare. I think we played Call of Duty.
This was like a Father's Day, right? Because we used to spend Father's Day together before we had the Next Level.
I don't think we were doing bong rips on Father's Day. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And
was it actually a bong, or
yes.
was it a? Yeah,
no, it was a bong. I had a bong, and it was a good one. It was a nice bong, very nice. And I was like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna hit this. You want to hit this?" And I don't know if he had ever done it. I think you were just like, "Yeah, what do I do?" And I was like,
"I hadn't with yours. I had done again. I was painted up in Maine and." For a summer, and they were all big into marijuana, and I would dabble, but I was never, I never did more than dabble with marijuana, genuinely, and I don't think I've ever not regretted it.
Well,
honestly.
Alan took too big of a hit. This is why
So
if you're somebody who doesn't partake often in marijuana, the last thing you want to do is use a bong. It's very hard to control how much you intake. It's very
terrible
challenging.
idea.
And I could right after he hit it, I was like, shit. And he starts the uncontrollable bong cough after, and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. And I put Alan to bed. Like I had Alan lie down on the couch, and he's like, dude, I don't know, man, I don't feel good. How long is this gonna last? And I was like, oh, dude, an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, you'll be fine.
You lied to me.
I had to.
Bold-faced lie.
Just take a nap, man. Just take a nap. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh no. But I was also anxious too, because I was like, well, what if something happens? I'm not going to be able to take care of us. So that's the bong rip story. How did we get there?
We were talking about paradoxical intention and how if
anxiety.
you do have anxiety, owning it helps it sometimes. I don't know. I don't know.
That was anxiety. Well, okay, think of it this way. Imagine, and again, we'll get to the point, I promise, but imagine if you pretended you weren't and then fought the battle internally by yourself. It didn't say like, Kev, I'm like kind of freaking out.
Yeah, I just
then you'd wonder. Yeah, you needed to nap it off. But then you'd wonder, is Kev judging me? Am I acting differently? Like, is this okay? Is this normal? Yeah. I think that's a really good... One of the hardest parts about me being sick recently was it made me so anxious about breathing almost the whole time. The sick, like, not feeling good part was like, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. I'll rest. But there'd be certain times where I'd be laying in bed, and since I was stuffed up and congested, I would be like, am I struggling to breathe, or am I just, and then it gets in your head. Sometimes I can't even walk on the treadmill because I get super anxious. That happens still to this day. To this day, that happens. That would happen in jiu-jitsu if I like pushed it too hard. I'd have like a moment of like, can I not breathe? Can I breathe? Is this normal? It's wonky. Anxiety is a weird freaking thing. But
lean into it.
Lean into it. This is my thought. My definition of lean into it is it's two things. It's one, it's either go with the flow of the thing that you're trying to avoid, or make a gentle commitment to testing. So I can imagine how hard it would be for somebody who has a very, very, very negative view of sales to just say, okay, I'm going to go all in on learning sales. Versus saying, well, I'm going to lean into sales a little bit more. All that means is you're open to the opportunity of experimenting with it. And I think that's why it's important, because it's not all or nothing. It's not, well, I'm going from not something to 100% something. No, that doesn't happen anyway. That's not the way it works. But if you're open to the idea, then you lean into it. Okay, maybe, what's a good example?
What did you lean into? What did you have to lean into to get to where you are today?
What did I have to lean into?
Let me ask a better question. Better question, better answer.
Yeah, your questions suck.
Hey, take it easy. Yeah.
You think people think we hate each other, like behind the scenes? Like when we get off here, it's like, all right, dude, I'll talk to you when I have to talk to you next.
No, I don't
Screw
think
off.
so.
You
No,
think so?
it's the energy. I think it's very obvious that we don't hate each other. Real quick, better question. Can you explain why you think the resistance thing is not optimal for someone who wants to reach their goals?
I think
Because this has been a big thing over the last 8 years where Kev would get advice of, I feel too much resistance. I don't think that's... And you always thought that was not intelligent because you felt resistance towards so many things that were actually good for you.
I think oftentimes the things that you feel resistance towards are the things that you just don't understand yet, or you don't understand the benefit, or there's just fear or uncertainty. Like I could never... it's really easy to feel resistance towards something you don't think you can do. Because now you save yourself from any fear, any embarrassment, it's just that self-fulfilling prophecy of, I could never do that. I'll just villainize it, therefore I never have to do it. So I think that's one of the reasons
Do you think that's what people are doing? Because I think some resistance is, I always used to say this, there's a big difference between I don't think I can hit the ball and I don't even think I want to swing. Like I'm not even sure I want to hit the ball. Even if I hit the ball out of the park, I might regret it. I think that's resistance. I don't think I can hit the home run, that's not resistance, that's just fear.
Yeah. I think it's common. But the problem is...
Fear masks itself as intuition, and that's why this lean in thing is so powerful. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good. I think it depends on... That's the thing is, there's a difference between you saying, I'm going to lean into my insecurity. Right? Same here. I'll use me as an example because I know me better than I know you. I've leaned into, I'm not like Alan. I'm not. Alan and I are very different. Like, I'm the one who, I'm going to tell jokes. I'm so excited we could talk about a bong rip. Like, that made my day. I'm self-improvement. Self-improvement is one of the things I'm most passionate about ever of all times. Changed my life in more ways than anything else. And I also like having a whiskey on a Friday. I like watching UFC for 12 hours. I like eating pizza. I like that. I'm a normal dude with extraordinary goals and above average consistency and habits. That's what I want to be. And I want to be able to have small talk, and I want to be able to talk to anybody. Like, that's all very important to me. When I was supposed to get my hair cut today. I have a blast with the person that cuts my hair, depending on who it is.
So for you, you're leaning into being likable.
No. That comes naturally to me. I have had to lean into understanding that, and again, this might sound arrogant, I don't mean it that way, that my time is valuable. And I can't just be likable. Because if I just focus on all right, I'm supposed to have a 30-minute call with this person today, but I also have something very, very important that has to happen. I can't just stay on the phone for an hour and a half because I want this person to like me. There has to be some strategy behind what I do too.
So what do our listeners lean into? Are you supposed to lean into the things that you're afraid of?
Yes, I think if you're insecure about, I'm insecure about being short, I need to lean into the fact that I'm short.
You're short. Yeah.
Because if I don't, like, there's these videos I see all the time. All the time is an over-exaggeration. I've seen before where and we've mentioned it, somebody will go to like a bodybuilding convention and they'll bring a scale and a tape measure. In the bodybuilding industry, everybody, I won't say everybody lies. It's very important. That's like the measurement. Like, how tall is this person? How much do they weigh? And it's a sign of being on when you know how tall you are and how much you weigh for some reason, especially for men. It's like a weird thing. And some people get unbelievably angry. How tall are you? 6'3". 6'3". What are you weighing nowadays? About 275. They pull out the tape measure. It's like, all right, cool. You mind if we get the measurement? They're like, no, come on, man. Why? We don't have to. Why are we doing that here? It's like, I hope somebody does that to me one day. Because I will say 5'5", I think. 5'5" on a good day, maybe 5'4", depending on how much I squatted yesterday. And then what do you weigh? That I don't care about. 183.2 today. Because why would I do the other thing? when that's the thing that's going to create more. And when you tell a lie, you got to keep telling lies to keep the lie going. So I think leaning into the truth is one thing.
Which is hard to do if you're insecure, right? So if you're insecure about being short, the last thing you want to do is say, I'm probably barely 5'5".
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
When in reality, if this person is like negative, they're trying to get me on a lie. Like they want me to say 5'8" because it makes for good content. But why would I ever do that? I've talked about this publicly so many times. For me, it's like this is normal.
Well, you've been you've been leaning into that for a long time. What's
trying.
something?
I've been trying.
Because I'm 6'2", but I'm not. I'm 6'1 3/4". So I just round it up.
Why not round up to 6'5", 6'6"? You know what I mean?
Because that's the dumbest shit ever. That's the dumbest shit ever. I can't even. I
used to watch
have in my
wrestling,
bio.
and they used to like professional wrestling. It was like this guy is 6'6", 350 pounds. I'm like, whoa, man. Wait, that other guy's 6'2", though. The same height as him. Like somebody's lying about their height, but it's a show. You're supposed to.
Yeah, it's brutal.
You want that to be there. Right?
Embellishment.
Yeah.
The more secure you get in life, the less you will embellish. I do believe that's true. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
What have you had to lean into to achieve your goals?
That I didn't want to?
Lights. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Organization, sales, strategy.
NLU listener, what is happening? I just wanted to jump in here and let you know if you want to get to the next level faster, we have a free virtual monthly meetup at the first Thursday of every month. You can connect with like-minded people and become a bigger part of this amazing global community. The link to register will be in the show notes. But isn't leaning in owning that you're not organized and then going to work on it?
I think leaning in is being open to it to start. Leaning in suggests that I'm going to move closer to that. I don't know what it's like yet. I think that's why there's two thoughts I have for leaning in. One is it's an insecurity that you have that you want to make friends with. I think the only way to do that is to lean into it. Leaning in eventually turns to owning it. That's one thought. And then the other thought is it's something that maybe isn't an insecurity. It's just something that you're not ready to identify as. So you lean into it a little bit more. You lean into it. Maybe you want to be somebody that's like in the fitness arena. Maybe you don't go out and buy the nice clothes and the water bottle and this and this and this. Maybe you you download an app first. You lean into that more. If you want to be a runner, maybe you download the app. You lean into running. You don't buy the new shoes and this and this and this and this and this. You lean into it just to test the waters a little bit. It just allows you to be open with the thing, I think. I think that's what leaning in means to me. Those two things.
I think a lot of success and fulfillment comes down to identifying what you're actually insecure about. Because with the organization thing, and again, Kevin and I are just using us as examples. We want you thinking about your own life yourself. You have to lean into the fact that you're not, like accepting that you're not naturally organized, and then work on getting more organized in order to achieve your goals. I have to lean into the fact that I'm hyper-organized and it makes other people feel like a mess. Like, what's a good example of this? I had a client of mine say this to me earlier today. He said, "You're a hardcore motherfucker." And I was like, I was like, I don't think so at all. Like, I appreciate you, but like, I feel like I'm soft as fuck. I want to be more intense, not less. Like, this is not it for me. I got another level, sir. I don't feel that organized. The reason I'm so organized is because I don't think I'm organized enough. This is all paradox. I don't think anyone, that sounds pretentious. I never understood how much of a paradox everything is. When you first met me and we were working out together, you eventually admitted to me that one of the reasons you were insecure around me is because I was not insecure.
Yes.
It made me insecure when you were insecure about me not being insecure. You see how...
Yeah. And that's what
So
you leaned into.
Exactly. And I've just been more vulnerable and honest about it.
Yeah.
I'm not insecure about not being organized. I'm insecure about being so much more organized than other people that they feel bad about themselves.
Well,
I don't want to make you feel bad about yourself.
No, I know.
And but yet, ironically, I need to help people be more organized because they come to me to help them achieve their goals. You can't achieve your goals without being organized. Like, I know that sounds like I'm making fun of people. I'm not. You just can't. It's comical to think you could, to be completely honest. Go ahead.
I think that's authenticity. I think that thing right there, I think there's authenticity and then there's, I don't know, let's say utility, hypothetically. Authenticity is if I actually want to represent who I am internally in the external world, I have to lean into that piece of me more. Lean in the comedy part of me. I love making people laugh. If you notice, I always try to do it on the podcast. I need to lean more into that.
But you're not insecure about that.
No. But I don't think it's just insecurity.
How does someone know whether to lean in or not? That's like
it helps you get your goals. It's directly connected to you. If I've met so many podcasters who want to do coaching in the way that we do it. And when I start talking to them about sales, they say, no, I don't want to do sales. Good luck. You have to lean into that in your own unique version.
Not leaning into not wanting to do it.
No, lean into learning about it, testing out the waters, rebuilding even if leaning into it just means understanding what your current relationship is. Cool, let's start there. I think that's because that's directly connected to your goals in some way, shape, or form. If you want to be the most authentic version of yourself and you want to feel like you're you wherever you go, then you have to lean more into being authentic. That's directly connected to your goals. I would say that. Just like, because it's almost like when you're leaning into something, you're leaning away from something else that doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
I need to lean into...
But sometimes you're leaning into something you don't want, and then other times you're leaning into something you are.
What's
like that
it,
person? Do you know what I mean?
No. When you say leaning into something you don't want, what do you mean? You have an example?
In the case with the sales, they want to be a coach, but they don't like sales. They have to lean into sales to be a coach.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I have to lean into the thing that I already am and own it. Like, there's two different types of this. I think one of them's owning who you fucking are.
Authenticity.
And the authenticity. And the other one is like owning who you're not, but you still have to work on it. Like organization, you have to own that you're not naturally organized and then work on it to achieve your goals. I have to just own the fact that I'm hyper organized and that's how I'm wired, and that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing, even though it's caused me massive pain from relationships that weren't aligned.
And then isn't there another one where you can also lean into you've used the example before of you were in a relationship and this person wanted you to go away for like 2 weeks at a time. And I think at one point you leaned into it a little bit, then tested the waters and then realized like there's no possible, I can't do this and this isn't who I am. So you leaned into it and it wasn't necessarily what's best for you, and then you realized you didn't want to go that way. So that's another one, I guess.
Well, one that was big this year for me was working on Christmas and Christmas Eve. You didn't want to, so you leaned into who you are.
Right.
And I did want to, and I leaned into who I am. And ironically, both of us were insecure about it.
I was afraid to share it.
I was afraid too. Like, because people, they project onto you that you shouldn't work Christmas Eve. I don't know what just happened to my... Hold on.
Alan has been abducted by aliens. I'm going to finish this episode solo.
This is why it's so hard to do this episode, is because what you have to lean in. So if you're insecure about something, you lean into it and own it. Mm-hmm. If it's a part of who you are already, but you're insecure because maybe that's triggering to other people, you got to lean into it and own it. And then if it is if it's something you don't want to do or you're afraid of, that is required for your goals, you have to lean into that.
So let's do this. Let's put it this way. And again, this is what I love about the podcast, is we can just kind of see what happens. If you are afraid that all of you is too much, you need to lean into your too muchness. As long as you're just not a dick. You know, some people out there are like, they couldn't handle me. I was too much. Like, you might just be an asshole, honestly. It's very possible
you probably are.
Right, that's different. That's different. If you lose sleep at night because you don't feel like you can be you because you intimidate people, that's different than saying like, well, I really gave it to that person like they were. I told them exactly what I was thinking. It's like, well, that's doesn't necessarily mean anything. That means you're not a great communicator potentially.
I gotta share this real quick.
Share
Morning,
this.
What are 3 words that best describe your next level of self? This is in the Next Level Dreamliner. I said courageous, driven, and effective. I thought about earlier before I wrote courageous, I thought about those people who say, I'm unapologetically me.
Mm-mm.
Those are people who are just like, I don't care if I'm a dick. Fuck it. And it's like, you know what, though? That's not actual vulnerability. Because that might not be who you really are. You might be just egoing up to protect yourself from criticism rather than actually being authentic. And that's a whole nother episode at some point. But fake authenticity versus actual authenticity. Actual authenticity is, I am actually afraid of coming off as a dick. I am afraid of coming off as a dick. However, I also need to lean into who the fuck I am, which is someone who actually believes you have to work hard to achieve your goals. And if someone's lazy and has huge goals, you're in trouble. And I want to help you with that by saying, hey, you might be lazy. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I want to help. And I think that's one of them is like, screw what people think and feel. The other one is, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to try to do it in a way that takes into account how people think and feel. However, I also am not at the expense of who I am.
My thought is, if you're afraid that all of you is not enough, you have to lean into that insecurity in order to make friends with it and then coexist with it. That's what lean in means to me from that. If you're somebody that thinks all of you is too much, you need to lean into that, because you most likely have lived your life in a very misaligned, never being authentic way, and you probably feel deep down that you would rather be hated for who you are than liked for someone you're not, because you're not going to like yourself. And then I think the third version is, if you have a specific goal in mind, a specific result that you want, leaning in is leaning into the behaviors and attributes of somebody that would be capable of achieving that. That's what, and all 3 of those are scary in their own unique, different ways. But that's why it's always hard to have certain topics, because it depends on who you are. I'm not afraid of being too much. I've always felt not enough. I'm not afraid of being too much. That doesn't resonate with me. Alan, being not enough does not resonate with him. Different sides. Leaning more into developing a skill, I think we can all resonate to some degree with the discomfort that might cause. Maybe it's not the fact that you don't think you can do it. Maybe it's not the fact that you don't think you can be good at it. Maybe it's all the internal feelings you have about the thing that you have to work through. That's what leaning in is. I didn't think I would be good at sales. I didn't think I could ever be good at sales, but it was more the fact that I hated it. So I had to be open to the idea of just let me lean in. Let me get closer to the flame. I'm not going to jump all the way in, but let me get a little bit closer and see. And then I get a little bit closer, and then I get a little... And then eventually I think you're trying to help people lean into the thing that you used to villainize and now you don't anymore because you see the benefits of it. It's a wild episode. Deep. What's your wrap-up here, sir? You have a wrap-up?
Yeah. What people think you are is different than what you are. Everything's different from the outside in than it is from the inside out. So from the outside in, my client thinks I'm a hardcore mother effer or whatever. From the inside out, I feel like I'm not intense enough. I need to be more dialed in. I genuinely need to be more dialed in. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, in order for me to achieve my goals, there's no question that I'm unorganized. I'm not organized enough. I'm not dialed in enough. I'm not intense enough. I'm not. anytime you allow anyone to define you from the outside, it's based on their perspective. Because compared to this person, I am more hardcore than him. But that doesn't mean I'm hardcore compared to what I need to be. And statistically speaking, I rationally know that I am hardcore, intense, driven, focused, organized. That doesn't matter in my life with my goals in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I can say, Kevin, you're so strong. It's like, well, if you want to be the strongest man on earth, you're not. You're weak as shit. So I think that anytime you allow anyone to define you or to get you to be a certain way, that is detrimental to your goals if your goals are actually aligned with who you are.
Well said.
Thank you, man.
I would say doing the thing that scares you is not a bad thing if doing the thing that scares you is overcoming that fear is necessary to become who you want to be. There are certain things that I'm never going to just lay in a snake pit. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to lean into snakes. It just doesn't make, why? For what reason? It doesn't make any sense. There's no benefit. There is. There's not a specific enough benefit based on where I want to go. So I can say I'm not afraid of snakes. It doesn't really make any sense. I could take that and put that into so many other places that are actually applicable.
Last question. I know we got to jump.
Yeah.
For someone who is afraid to not be enough, that all of you is not enough, quote unquote, to your quote earlier. Do you feel like you have to be different to achieve your goals? Because I feel like I have to be different to stay in relationships.
Yeah.
It's almost like, does it feel inauthentic for you to be the chief sales officer? I know it doesn't anymore, but
yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what people mean by resistance, I think, is well, if I want this goal, I have to change who I am to achieve it. Of course you do. Of course you do.
It can feel dirty, though.
Right.
Because
how do you know when it's something you should change or something you should say, that goal's not worth it?
I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can do that without experiencing. This will be the last thing I say. Of course, it can feel dirty between the time where you are one identity evolving to a second identity, because for a lot of that time, you are pretending. I'm not saying you're faking it till you're making it, but you are kind of becoming somebody that you're not. And maybe somebody that you've never been, and that's scary as shit. Especially if you have any negative associations with that.
That's how I felt in relationships. That's so fascinating.
We'll have to do a part 2, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's an episode I think the people who feel, the last thing I say, I think the people who feel like all of you is not enough, deep down, I think it feels like you have to be different to achieve your goals. I think for the people who feel like all of them is too much, I think you feel like you have to be different to be in relationship with most people. I don't feel like I have to be different at all in any way to be with Emilia. You're the next closest, and it's a gap. I don't feel like I have to be different than who I am to achieve my goals, other than the relationship aspect of it. It's so fascinating. I don't know if I know when to lean into who you really are or when to lean into your weaknesses to improve them. It's very fascinating.
I think the goal is always to do both at the same time, because the outcome is hopefully the same. You become the best version of yourself. I just think different people have different seasons of which ones to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens. What would
be the part 2 episode? What would it would be? Do you have to change who you are to achieve your goals? Something like that. Do you have to? Because I think in some cases you just have to lean into who you are.
I understand. I know what you're saying. Yeah. What do you have to change versus what do you have to become more of?
Exactly.
That would be the part 2.
Cool.
We'll do that at some point. This calendar year, maybe. We always say we're going to do part 2s, and then the next time, we're recording tomorrow. Maybe I feel like tomorrow would be a good day to do it, though. As long as we feel it. We want to make sure we feel what we talk about, because you'll be able to tell if we don't. Okay. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for jamming with us on this deep-ass conversation. And as always, at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Stay next level. Next Level Nation.